And I heard people say that in meetings, surrender to win. People that surrender are fucking losers. What are you talking about? It's hard to wrap your head around. But when you surrender, when you really admit, okay, I am powerless over alcohol. Maybe I could control it when I was younger, but hasn't been the case for 3 years now. I'm going to drink myself to death. If I can accept that, then I become beat up enough, open-minded enough to like, all right, well, let's talk about this God thing. I'm not really into it, but you're saying that's the only way. Like, let's hear it out. You want me to go to a meeting? Fine, I'll go to a meeting. Welcome back to the Struggle and Strive podcast. My name is Estil Wallace. Today is going to be a follow-up video on the 12-step series. So if you've watched all of the 12 steps and you've got questions, you can always feel free to leave questions in the comments. But in order to answer some of the questions that we've got going on, I've got 3 friends with me today. They're all in recovery, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Hi, Jason Jordan, grateful alcoholic. My sober date is 1/26 of 25.
Nikita Wise, recovering addict alcoholic, and I got about 4 months sober.
Hi, my name is Star, and I'm an addict in recovery, and today I'm 84 days sober.
First of all, I want to say congratulations to all 3 of you on your recovery. I know, obviously, it's one of the biggest steps you'll ever make. It's one of the biggest pivots in your life, and while it may be one of the hardest things that you'll ever go through, you will probably at the end of your lives look back and think it's the best decision I ever made. That's how I feel about it. So congratulations on your new lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you guys have seen all 12 steps presented, all my crazy rantings at the camera. I would love to know what questions you have, and let's take a deeper dive into some of this stuff.
Okay, I think I want to start on the allergy aspect of it, just because I feel like there's like a lot of controversy on it, and I just want like kind of your take on like how you would describe to somebody the allergy, like if you once were able to control your drinking or drugging, like how it got like to a point where you couldn't control it anymore because of the allergies.
It's a great question, and it is contentious. People do wrestle with that. Not everybody, but there are people that wrestle with it. The allergy in the big book, and verified by one of the heads of the American Medical Association at the time it was written, verifies what so many alcoholics and drug addicts go through physically, physiologically, when they begin in drinking or using. And that is, one drink just isn't enough. If the allergy is characterized by craving, so I have a drink, I crave more. For an example, there was a time I was sober 5 or 6 days, and I went out for a pitcher of beer and some hot wings, and I drank all night, got into doing meth, and I was still awake Monday morning, didn't go to work. I'd spent my whole paycheck. And that's one example, and that's actually a pretty extreme example. It doesn't always have to end in handcuffs and bloodshed, but it could be more than you intended and embarrassed yourself, said some crazy shit at a wedding during the toast, and you're all, you know what I mean? Part of the puzzle of alcoholism is the desire to conceal it, even from ourselves. No, I'm not that bad. Mm-hmm. I'm not here to convince anybody that they're alcoholic. I'm here to talk about my experience, and usually people they'll come to it on their own, like, yeah, I have that. I do some of that shit too. The allergy, while it's hard to quantify in terms of like how much of an allergy does one person have over another, I haven't seen any data around that. And the big book, as well as many physicians that study addiction, they still refer to the allergy as a phenomenon, that craving as a phenomenon, meaning they don't exactly understand why it happens. What's important is the observation of it, is that it is documented in millions of cases. So we know that it happens.
Right.
And when you're talking to somebody who is experiencing it, you bring up a story or two that clicks, and they're like, yeah, I've done that.
Well, because like as an alcoholic, I mean, and I can say that now and more or less understand it. I used to struggle with that term, and as a retread coming back through, standing up and getting this 30 days out, in and out, rehab this, detox this, I struggled with being and identifying as an alcoholic. So I'd like to actually hear your take on what it means. I've heard it in the rooms before, but what it means to do things alcoholically, be an alcoholic.
It's a tongue-in-cheek phrase to do something alcoholically. It's thrown around a lot, particularly in the recovery rooms. It's half a joke. It's typically when people do things like they have a phenomenon of craving around it. I would say I experience a mild phenomenon of craving with sugar. Like I eat ice cream alcoholically. It's true. It's a thing. And I buy sneakers alcoholically, right? There are things in my life that I do seemingly with that it has a similar parallel to alcoholism. It's not obviously as detrimental. Like I'm not eating ice cream all day, locking myself in the bathroom, avoiding my probation officer. It's not the same.
Yeah. Do you think that it is just that ego and that pride that alcoholic like has so much like connotation on it, or it's just, defining yourself as that? I mean, I know that's what I struggled with. And I went through all that whole trying to identify something different or be the different guy. And it's so much easier just to be like, dude, I'm an alcoholic.
It's not a title that is welcomed by almost anyone. You have to be in such bad shape to just finally just give it and be like, fine.
What about when you realized that you were powerless? Like, what is your definition of powerless?
Powerless is another one of those words people don't like.
Exactly.
It's very tough to get our heads around. I was pretty fresh. This is my first few months. I'm living at a halfway house. A dude, I won't say his name. I'm still friends with him. He's doing good. But this dude I used with on the streets. So like I see him, he's like, "You're here?" And I'm like, "You're here? Hey, we know each other." Yeah. So it's a dude I know from the streets. We're roommates at this halfway house, and he leaves early. Didn't call AMA, it was just sober living. But he's like, "I'm out of here." We had 90-day commitments. He left before his commitment. And he's packing up his truck. He's got a good job. And he's like, "Yeah, I need to get out of here. Too many rules. I'm gonna go work. I got a sweet apartment down the way, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "All right, cool. Yeah, my life's in shambles. Good for you. I'm not ready to do that. I don't have the resources to do that." And he looks at me and he goes, "You really believe in all this powerlessness bullshit?" And not even thinking about the answer, I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I don't." He's like, "I'm going to drink a beer at a game." He's like, nobody's going to tell me I can't have a beer at a baseball game. Literally what he said. And I was like, "Yeah, I get that." And he drove away, and I'm watching him drive down the street in his truck with all of his things in the back. And it was like I could see the future. His future was like, that dude is going to be smoking or injecting methamphetamine in days. I know the guy. We used with him on and off for years. Went to high school with him. And all of a sudden I felt like this overwhelming wave of fear for him. I was like, God, he doesn't even realize. And then all of a sudden it like whipped around and hit me in the face. And it was like, that's going to happen to you too, Estil. You think you're going to smoke weed when this is all over? Not going to work out. And I got scared and I called my sponsor. And I said, "Hey, dude, I'm powerless." He started laughing at me. He's like, "You reading the big book or something?" I'm like, "Yeah, but no, like I just had a friend leave the halfway house telling me that he's going to go drink a beer at a game. And that ain't what's going to happen." He's like, "Yeah, no shit."
Yeah.
And yeah, from that day, that was when that was one of those turning points for me where I really started wrapping my head around powerlessness. Powerlessness doesn't mean I shouldn't or I can't or that bad things might happen if I do. Powerlessness means I'm going to do it again. Probably when I least expect it,
Mm-hmm.
probably without a good reason. That's what's so terrifying. It's like I can't trust my own mind. If I'm the one who's in charge of parenting myself and caring for myself and leading myself to growth and development, how am I supposed to do that when that person is ready to put drugs and alcohol in my body, knowing full well that I'm going to end up early grave or prison or fill in the blank with all kinds of negative consequences?
Because for me, like, since I've completed my 12 steps and I've starting to see the promises coming, I always have to remember that there's a balance. You know what I mean? So like the good comes. So when the good comes, you know something bad is coming, but it's okay because that good is going to follow the bad type of thing. Have you seen that happen to you?
Yeah, I don't try to envision the bad. I believe that worry is a form of prayer. So I don't like to pray for bad things. I don't like to pray for outcomes I don't want.
Yeah.
Good way to look at it.
But yes, it's a grown-up expectation that things aren't going to work exactly the way you think they're going to. I would challenge that some of the things that I was disappointed in that didn't work out the way I thought they should turned out to be bricks in a much larger structure that was way better than anything I could have architected. That's happened many times. It doesn't mean it hasn't been tragedy. My wife and I, we lost our first child, our oldest son. And from a mature place, I cannot give you a one-liner or something I picked up in a book or on a post on Instagram that justifies that. I know plenty of people can, and that's fine. I'm not here to judge their pain or their loss or what they've been through. I can't. There's no one-liner that makes that okay, or this happened because so that this could happen. Miss me. I don't care.
Right.
That's not been my experience. So those things do happen. That's a part of life. Rather than everything's going to go perfect, I'm a stronger, more resilient, more anti-fragile version of myself than I've ever been.
So that leads me back to step 1, powerless over alcohol in your life has become unmanageable. So what would you recommend to somebody that isn't willing to admit that they are powerless, and how willingness and surrender kind of plays a part in that too?
It's such a tough question because and I don't speak for everybody in recovery, I'll speak for myself. I'm not here to convince people that they need to do anything or that they should or ought to do anything. But if a person comes to me and says, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, I can't stop and I want to, I'm like, all right, brother, let's get into some new habits and see if we can't tap you into this power that I call God, that many people call God. I want to treat them tenderly, like they're a tourist, like they were just tire kicking, and say, listen, if you ever find yourself in a place where this has really gotten away from you, remember that we're here. I've said that to people that have come back to me years later and been like, dude, I need help. And because I wasn't a dick to them, you know?
Yeah, I struggled with that a
Sure.
lot, like just wanting to stay in control and not willing to let go. And that affected me a lot. And I feel like a lot of it had to do with shame and guilt, and that admitting that I was powerless over something gave me that shame and guilt.
Yeah, like totally defeated.
Exactly.
Yeah, like what do I do from here if I'm completely powerless? If I have no power, and it goes against the grain of most cultures. Most cultures don't preach surrender to win. Fight, dig, push, grind, persevere. This spiritual way forward is very paradoxical. Surrender to win. And I heard people say that in meetings, surrender to win. People that surrender are fucking losers. What are you talking about? It's hard to wrap your head around. But when you surrender, when you really admit, okay, I am powerless over alcohol, there's nothing that I can do that's ever going to put this genie back in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could control it when I was younger, but hasn't been the case for 3 years now. I'm going to drink myself to death.
Yeah.
If I can accept that, then I become beat up enough, open-minded enough to like, all right, well, let's talk about this God thing. I'm not really into it, but you're saying that's the only way. Let's hear it out. You want me to go to a meeting? Fine, I'll go to a meeting.
What does the term restore us to sanity mean to you?
In reference to alcoholism, I want to be able to go to a restaurant that has a bar and not think about drinking. That would be a sane and sound, normal reaction to being exposed to the thing that was trying to kill me. Because that wasn't the thing, right? It was something deeper inside of me. If I were a sane person, after living through the nightmare that I've lived through, or any of us have lived through, to be presented with the option to drink or do drugs again, a sane reaction would be like, no. Like recoil like from a hot flame. Like, no, I don't want that. It's not about, oh, you don't like to have a beer at a game? Like, I don't drink beers at games. I lock myself in public bathrooms. Like, I'm a drug addict. Like, yeah, and we're talking about only about 17 to 20% of the human population. So it isn't everybody, and I don't expect everybody to understand this. People like you understand this. People like me understand this. People that go to treatment, wander into 12-step meetings, show up in detoxes. we all understand this, even if we don't know how to articulate it, we understand that. It's hard to believe that can end, that the nightmare of my life, this horror film that's been playing out for years, will actually be over. It's this thing that to maybe some small degree, we believe will happen, which is why we continue to do the work that's uncomfortable work. But there comes a point, if you persist, where if you surrender and do the work, there's a point, not for everybody, but damn near everybody, where it's over. The obsession gets removed. The self-hatred evaporates. The hatred of other people evaporates. And it's like watching the credits roll at the end of this film. And when the credits roll, what most people, myself included, do is we think we're going to go back in. There's going to be a round 2 coming soon, right? That's been my experience in the past. Then the shit show starts again. But it doesn't have to. If the credits really start to roll, let them roll.
So I wanted to touch on service work really quick because I really believe that is something super important while you're doing the 12-step program and helping others. And, I want to share something personal really quick because the first couple times I went through the steps, I wasn't willing to help other people. I didn't understand it and I didn't know the point of it or how it would benefit me or how it would benefit others. But truthfully, this last relapse, service work saved my life. And I don't know what I would do without it because the sponsor that I have now is truly amazing. And I didn't know it then, but I really do believe that God blessed me with an angel that day I met her. And so something that I have to do on the daily is ask myself, like, what am I not willing to do? And if I have an answer to that, then I have to go back and see where I'm lacking spiritually, where I'm lacking in living in the principles of AA. So how do you allow yourself to sustain standards while helping others?
Well, there's an old saying, carry the message, not the alcoholic. There are some people that you can do a few favors for, and they take to a new life like a fish to water. And then your kindnesses, you become the angel in their story later down the road. And that's the hope. Some people, it didn't matter if you gave them $20 on an ice cream cone every day the rest of their lives, they'd still find a way to just flush it all down the toilet. And at some point, each of us who's in service has to make a decision as to whether or not we're going to keep depositing into that person's life, or if we're going to cease that so that I can focus on depositing into other people. And it's not about giving up on them as a person. If I've stopped depositing into someone's life, it's not because I don't care about them. It's not because I don't want them to make it. Maybe I don't convey the message properly to this person. Maybe I've helped too much. Maybe I've helped in ways that enabled them to stay stagnant, to not grow. That's tough. That's tough because, when I was newly sober, living in a halfway house, I couldn't pay rent. And I was floated for weeks. There was a deficit where my best efforts wasn't enough to keep a roof over my head. And God, that's hard to say without crying. But God and the people that God was working through helped me bridge that gap. And so I feel compelled to do that for others. But yeah, you got to pay somebody who's rented the halfway house for 2 years. You're going to help them move all their shit. Like there's at some point you're like, for each one of us, for you particularly, you'll find your own threshold of all right, I've poured as much as I can to this person and it's not happening. At some point, you can't get them sober. You can't make them do the work to find God.
And I feel like we hang on to this idea that we can fix people. And sometimes you just need to be there for them and not enable their self-pity, if that makes sense.
100%.
I was talking with my therapist about this yesterday because we were on the subject of empathy. And it's what do you do to try to comfort somebody when they're crying? Well, you try to make them stop crying, but you can't. You can't fix them. So what you can do is just sit and listen.
It's a hard lesson to learn if you haven't been around people that are going through real pain. But yeah, that's the best thing you can do. Star, you mentioned how important service work has been this go around. And that's been my experience also. For me, I didn't have what we talk about as like a psychic change or spiritual awakening until I started being of service. For me, it was sponsorship and taking other men through the steps and teaching them how to pray. And what felt like regurgitating stuff that I was still unsure about to new guys, it became true for me. Is that kind of how it happened for you?
So I'm like really new into service work. I'm on my 8th step right now. And so what I've been doing to help others is like people in my house that I live with at treatment right now, if they need like help with like just like needing somebody to like listen to them
Mm-hmm.
at meetings, like volunteering to like read or stuff like that. I've been going to H&Is recently as well, coming here to help like you with your podcast and stuff like that. So I'm still really new into service work, but I've just like recently recognized how important it is.
What is it you get by giving?
I feel like when I help others, it allows me to show my gratitude in other ways. And when I show my gratitude, it helps keep me in the present. It not only allows me to like think about what I have, but I feel like it really like helps like maintain my serenity as well.
100%. It's so beautiful to hear it from your perspective and at your stage where you're at, because you're on it. You're on the center of it. When we offer ourselves to be of service to others, it reconnects us to our spiritual family in a way that nothing else can.
Mhm.
It's incredible. It's one of the main components of this way of life. I'm glad that you found it.
Thank you.
The world is a crazy place. I definitely don't want to be part of that crazy. I want to combat it with a little bit of love and some service work. And
That's right. I don't think you have to be overly religious to acknowledge that there is a creative force and a destructive force at work in this world. And where do I want to be?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I want to be?
I don't even know if it's said in the book, but obviously my downfall, women, money. I know right away, and that's got to stay clear of that. But they say, stay away from relationships for a year. And people, I've heard people regurgitate that the big book says stay away from relationships. I'm like, it doesn't say that in the big book. It's just a suggestion, correct? I mean, I know.
It doesn't say that.
Yeah.
No, it's just a suggestion. It's a helpful suggestion.
Yes, very helpful.
One that I would venture to say very few people in the history of the 12 steps have ever followed. It is a helpful suggestion. You know what I reckon? This is my recommendation to anybody who's watching this, or to you three, or to the men that I sponsor and work with. I recommend not to pursue a new relationship until you've done a thorough inventory and gotten clear on your ideals. I think that's a good starting point. And that doesn't mean a year. Depending on how you're working the steps, it's probably a few weeks. Just to get clear about who do you want to be? Who do you want to be in this world? And what type of person, what type of partner do you want? What are the red flags I don't want to paint green? What are those things? Getting clear about that, I've got a good starting point, whether it's a year or not. Money and relationships, whether you're a man or a woman, those are, and I can't speak for women, but I can speak for dudes. Like, yeah, we want to seek romance, validation, sex also, and then we want to be providers, right? There's like to procreate, to raise a family, and to be a provider for that family is in our DNA as men. That's not foreign. That's not weird. It's not synthetic. It's not impressed upon you by society. Feel free to argue with me about that on the internet if you like, but that's a very natural thing for men, predating modern history. Like, that's just the way we're wired. So I wouldn't encourage you to beat up on yourself like, oh, women and money are my downfall. No, I think lack of priorities is probably the downfall. Putting those things ahead of your relationship with God is probably the downfall. Because God wants you to raise a family, wants you to be a provider, wants you to help your community, when you can do those things, you can be of greater service to your fellow man, and you can serve a greater purpose for God. And relationships are like a low-hanging fruit for a newly sober person. It's an easy one to be distracted by.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but like you can't expect a change if you're not willing to make the change. And your behaviors have so much to do with that. And like your behaviors stem from your thoughts. So if you can't change your thoughts and you can't change your mindset, then how are you going to like action that?
It's tough, but you're touching on one of the most critical parts of long-term change, and that is forcing the behavior change. All the things worthwhile in life are hard. All of them.
Mhm.
We have a tendency, and not just alcoholics and drug addicts. I mean, people. This is a human thing. We so quickly will trade what could be the $100 million solution for the $20 answer that we can get today.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to delay gratification is one of the things that separates us as a species from all other animals.
Like, for example, like I value my sobriety. So if something is going to compromise that, then like, it's a no.
Yeah.
Whether that be a relationship with somebody or sex with somebody or whatever it may be,
Mhm.
I will know if it compromises that value of mine. And that's where it's up to me to make the choice not to do it.
Yeah, build a bubble.
Yeah, once you start doing that, you'll start to create self-esteem for yourself
Mhm.
and that self-love, and it'll just always be easier to like, continue to do that for yourself and not look back on like your old like unhealthy habits. People don't choose their futures. People choose their habits that determine your future.
Correct.
So that's something that I have to like think about all the time.
We all should, or we all could. Some do. I'm inspired by the people that do. I'm inspired particularly by people that learn how to navigate those dynamics when they're young. I didn't learn it till I was in my, late 20s, early 30s. Figured out like, oh, if I exercise every day, in 6 months, I'll look and feel better. Because that's not what I want. I want to look good and feel good now.
Right.
And it's the same thing with relationships. It's the same thing with money. It's the same thing with anything that we want to pursue. It's like, at what point do I take responsibility for my future self?
So we talked about step 9, making amends, right? I owe my sister an amends, but she's no longer here. So I've been trying to figure out how to do that. And people keep talking about, releasing balloons or, saying a prayer, writing a letter, setting it on fire. What would be something that you would suggest in that aspect?
Those are all good suggestions. Does she have a gravesite?
No, she got cremated
Where are her remains?
with my mother. Well, I
She-
got some in a little necklace.
Oh, okay. So one idea, I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but one idea would be to write it down in the form of a letter, and then you could get those remains out, privately, either privately with yourself or maybe with your sponsor, and you could read the letter out loud. It doesn't, it falls into that category of things that can't be fixed. But expressing your regret, expressing the desire for it to be different, expressing the intent that if she were here, you would make an effort to have a deeper relationship, a better relationship, to do it better, I think has a lot of healing potential in it. I think that's something that if you do, it will help. It will help how you feel about yourself. It'll help how you feel about the relationship you had with her.
I feel kind of resentful because she died on my daughter's birthday. Like, not to get too personal, but like she first died on my 2 kids' birthday and she was on life support. They pulled the plug. She came back asking for tacos. She lived for like another month and a half, and then she died on my youngest daughter's birthday. So I felt like she was being selfish. So, that goes back to step 4 with the resentments and stuff. So I had resentments because she died on all of my kids' birthdays. Then her birthday just passed, but then like I owe her my life. You know what I mean? Like she's done some unspeakable things for me because she was my oldest sister and it was just me and her.
How did she die?
Cancer.
I'm sorry.
Breast cancer. And then that sucks too because I just found out I have breast cancer. So like all of this is happening and her birthday was just 2 days ago. And then like the anniversary of her death is coming up and I don't know what to do in that aspect. And I need to make the amends, but I still hold resentment too.
Can I interject?
Yeah, please.
What are you doing actively to withhold that resentment?
Meditating, praying.
Because when you like do your 4th step in that resentment inventory of yourself and you just give it to God, you know, you have to forgive yourself for those things too. And going back to the amends, just keep doing the next best thing. Where can you give back to others that maybe like would help in that aspect of like maybe like breast cancer awareness or something like that? Like little things that you can do to make those amends towards your sister.
I love the idea of getting involved in the breast cancer awareness movement. That's a great place where you could be of service.
Well, I already am. My mom had breast cancer. She's actually battling it right now for the 6th time.
Wow. So that's something that you're already doing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. Your sister didn't want to die.
Right.
Do you think she chose the dates?
No, but I'm saying just human nature.
She's your sister, so you
know?
want to have something to be mad
And
at
she's
her
my older
about.
sister. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like before she died, she's like, I'm the big sister.
Sibling
So,
rivalries.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would venture to say that your sister loved you very much. And then I can see that you loved her very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would just put the words on paper and get them out. There's no guarantees that it's ever going to be complete closure. I don't think there ever will be. I've lost a lot of people, and we heal from wounds. It doesn't mean they don't leave scars.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have to debilitate us and keep us down.
That's why I'm so unbothered.
I know nothing about your situation, but, you know, on a comical side of it, you know, at least you woke up asking for tacos.
Hey, she did wake up asking for tacos.
You know,
that was
hey,
her favorite food.
She
in the
must
world.
be from here.
You know?
No, Michigan. She
Michigan.
loves some tacos, though. Yeah.
You know? There's some good in that. There's some
Yeah,
beauty
she
in it,
ate tacos all the way up until she was gone. For
There you
real.
go.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this episode of Struggle and Strive. I want to thank you guys for joining us. I want to thank all 3 of you, Jason, Nikita, and Star, for being here and sharing this time with us today. If you've got more questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for being on here, guys.
It's been a pleasure.